What did you expect? A good movie? You've come to the wrong place. You knew what you were walking into. This is the story that I'm sure you all wanted to know. The origin story of Mufasa. Why? Just because. Disney can do whatever they like with any piece of existing material and stretch it to the core. Now, I understand that a lot of people like the remake of The Lion King from 2019. It made over $1 billion. And now we have the highly anticipated spin off of Mufasa. But what's different this time around? Well, for one, it's not copying beat for beat every scene from the original Lion King. Second of all, even though it's part of an existing franchise, this story is kind of brand new. You know what will happen by the end because it's a prequel, but the journey behind it remains unknown. The movie is framed as a story Rafiki tells to Simba's daughter Kiara to inspire her about family, destiny, and the circle of life. Mufasa starts out as an orphaned cub who gets swept away in a flood but ends up being taken in by a pride. That's where he meets Taka. Now, who is Taka, you might be wondering? Well, you have to be a complete idiot if you don't know who he is. Unless you've never seen The Lion King and this is the first time you've been introduced to these characters, which doesn't really make sense in the first place. So they grow up as brothers. As they get older, they must flee from Kiros, a villainous white lion who seeks to rule all of the land that the light touches. Of course, this is a story not just of drama but romance, comedy, and musical numbers. I will be honest and say I really enjoyed the first 40 minutes of the film. It was entertaining and the story was progressing at a rate that kept me engaged. It was smooth, energetic, and full of life. That enjoyment I reveled in was a last temporary. I appreciated that for a cynical cash grab, the director Barry Jenkins was trying to do something creative, endearing, and entertaining. And I was on board for the majority of the first half. Once Mufasa and Taka go on their journey to flee Kiros, I was getting bored. They introduced familiar characters like Sarabi, Rafiki, and that annoying bird Zazu. It just wasn't as impressive of an adventure. The stampede of the elephants was reminiscent of the wildebeest stampede. They were no longer coming up with any original points. Even the conclusion was the same fight as Simba against Scar. The only thing that did make a difference was Taka's change to Scar, but his motivation seemed lacking and forced. His change was sudden and didn't feel like it had the right development. He had the motivations which he explains through blatant exposition, but perhaps a scene from their childhood to build that tension between him and Mufasa could have been dealt with a lot better. The outcomes become far more predictable. It was a really forgetful second half. Only the scenery stood out. Some of the side characters were really annoying as well. I didn't mind Timon and Pumbaa at first, but their interruptions became less funny as the movie went on. Zazu was the worst character. Terrible voice acting, a really obnoxious character. I don't understand why they didn't just eat him. The voice acting all round was not great. It lacked distinction, gravitas, and reverence. These voices didn't stick with me. The origin of Rafiki's staff is just plain stupid. But the dumbest origin by far was the formation of Pride Rock. I can't really believe what I saw. All I will say is that it was completely unnecessary, kind of like this movie. The photorealistic animation is not as bad as the Lion King remake. They do add some level of emotion in the lions' faces, even though it still looks off and unnatural. People need to realize this is not a live action movie. It is still animated. Photorealism is designed to make the image look photographic, almost lifelike. You can achieve this with a painting or a drawing. It might look like a photograph, but really it's a painting designed to look photographic. So remember, this is not a live action remake / spin-off. It's still animated and the characters still look weird. The vistas and the general scenery of the Serengeti was great. I didn't have a problem with that, from the lush green savanna to the blistering mountains of ice and snow. You really felt immersed in this world. In terms of the characters and their motivations, I was less invested. I don't know what they expected going down this photorealistic direction, compared to hand-drawn 2D animation. The emotions coming out of the lines are non-existent. In the 1994 film, you can see the change of complexion within each character's faces that makes them distinct. Here it's difficult to differentiate who is who. If it wasn't for Mufasa's American accent and Scar's English accent, I would be struggling. And that's not a matter of me being a lion racist, but they kind of did all look the same. Whereas in the original, you can tell who is who, and it might not be realistic looking. And the people who like these new Lion King movies might say, well, they're given human faces so it doesn't feel genuine. Well, that's fine, but what is genuine about a bunch of animals worshipping a lion as their king. Because you're not going to find that in this world. The Lion King is all about emotion, not just through characters but through music as well. Here they only try to convey emotion through Hans Zimmer's original score. Not anything new, it felt incredibly manipulative. You try to make a scene feel uplifting or tragic by reusing the same music from the original, rather than come up with something new. And that shows how reliant they are on the success of the original. I understand it's part of the franchise now, but in this case, it really felt as though the music was overpowering the audience's judgment. The final act is rather predictable because you know the outcome already, and then Hans Zimmer's score plays in the same fashion as when Simba defeated Scar. It wasn't doing anything new, just playing at your nostalgic heartstrings, which is unfortunately the marketing goal of Disney in this period. And we're just suckers for seeing these movies and not advocating for new original blockbusters. The songs were not great, which was a shame because I'm a big fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda, but these numbers weren't planting any earworms this time round, except for maybe the brother song, but the rest didn't really appeal to me. The plot, while providing some backstory, is overly predictable and adds little depth to the beloved franchise. Additionally, the photorealistic animation, while visually stunning, struggles to convey the emotional depth needed to connect with the characters, leaving the story feeling hollow and disengaging. I think this movie would have been better if it was in 2D animation form, because then the emotional beats would have been far more impactful. As a result, this movie fails to live up to the emotional resonance and timeless charm of its predecessors. It's a movie that did not need to be made, but you cannot question Disney at this point, and this is sadly what the majority of the movie-going audience want to see. I hope this changes soon, but I don't think it will. 5 out of 10, pretty forgettable.